The person in question did not have to drink the cup of poison like Socrates, but they had to endure imprisonment, as it was said, "Speak, for the earth does not move." However, in a whisper, they added, "But it does move." We are recounting the story of the great scientist Galileo Galilei, who revealed the secrets of the universe through the lens of a telescope. You may have heard of the famous city of Pisa in Italy, known for its Leaning Tower. It was in this city that Galileo was born in 1564. His father was a musician, and Galileo learned music from him during his childhood. He played the lute, a stringed instrument, with great skill. When Galileo was 8 years old, his family moved to Florence. In 1581, he enrolled at the University of Pisa for a medical education, but soon his heart was not in medicine. Despite his father's opposition, he abandoned this subject and started studying philosophy and mathematics, namely mathematics. Alongside his studies, Galileo also tutored others. It was during his tutoring sessions that he invented a scale to measure small weights. Galileo admired the philosophy of Aristotle, although he did not know that in the future, he would have to disprove the theories of his favorite philosopher. In 1588, Galileo applied for the position of head of the Department of Mathematics at the University of Bologna, but was unsuccessful. Nevertheless, his reputation as a mathematician and scientist continued to grow. Galileo was a social man and actively engaged in forming connections with influential people politically. With the help of some friends, Galileo became the head of the mathematics department at the University of Pisa in 1589. During this employment, he began experiments in physics, proving that objects of different weights fall at the same rate to the ground. This contradicted Aristotle's theory, as he believed that objects fall at different rates according to their weight. Galileo climbed the Pisa Tower to demonstrate his theory and simultaneously drop a heavy and a light object to the ground. Although both objects fell at the same time, this discovery displeased his colleagues at the University of Pisa, who supported Aristotle's theory. Due to pressure from these individuals, the university rejected Galileo's contract renewal in 1592. It was an extremely challenging time for Galileo. A year prior, in 1591, his father had passed away, and being the eldest brother, Galileo now had to shoulder the responsibility for his entire family. In such circumstances, Galileo sought help from his influential friends. These individuals assisted him in securing a position as the chair of the mathematics department at the University of Padua, located 284 kilometers away from Pisa. Here, his salary exceeded that of the University of Pisa, and aside from his university duties, Galileo also began offering private tuition. Furthermore, he improved the design of the compass and started selling an enhanced version in the market, contributing significantly to Galileo's income. Then, in the year 1609, a remarkable revolution occurred in his life. You may already know that Galileo did not invent the telescope. Rather, he significantly improved its design. Before Galileo, someone in the Netherlands had attempted to register the invention under their name. However, 2 others also claimed to have invented the telescope independently. The scientific officer responsible for registration couldn't decide whose name to register it under because the design of the telescope was so simple that anyone could replicate it. Therefore, the invention couldn't be registered under anyone's name. During this time, Galileo also gained knowledge of the telescope's creation. He bought lenses with which he crafted a telescope, surpassing those made in the Netherlands. This telescope could magnify celestial bodies, including planets, stars, etc., 20 times larger than what the naked human eye could perceive. Galileo presented this invention at the court of the Duke of Venice, where it received great acclaim. Impressed, the Venetian government doubled Galileo's salary and extended his employment. At the end of 1609, Galileo began observing the depths of the sky with the help of the telescope, discovering a sea of wonders awaited him there. Aristotle had put forth 2 major theories about the universe. One claiming that the Earth is the center of the cosmos, and everything revolves around it, and the other asserting that the Earth is uneven, broken, and high, while the sky is perfectly smooth and unchanging. However, about 1,000 years later, when Galileo, sitting in Italy, observed the sky through a telescope, he realized that neither was the sky entirely smooth, nor was the Earth the center of the cosmos. Galileo observed that the surface of the moon was uneven with mountains and valleys. There were mountains and valleys on Venus when he directed his gaze towards it. Upon examining Jupiter, he was astonished to find that it had 4 moons revolving around it. Then, he also observed the rings around Saturn. Afterward, he prepared drawings of all his findings, and upon thorough analysis, understood that the Earth is not the center of the universe. Instead, there are several centers, and everything revolves around its respective center. The sky is not perfect. It contains irregularities similar to those found on Earth. Beyond words, Galileo also became convinced that the Earth is not static, meaning it is not stationary, but in motion. This notion was not new for Galileo, as the Polish scientist Nicholas Copernicus had previously presented a theory that the Earth revolves around the Sun. Through the use of a telescope, Galileo started to believe in the Copernican theory, but it posed a challenge as it contradicted the sacred text of Christians, the Bible. The Bible stated, "God has fixed the earth on its foundation, and it shall never move." Despite this, Galileo, in his research on the moon and other planets, authored a book. He named this book Sidereus Nuncius, Starry Messenger. Galileo had also studied Cosimo I de' Medici's celestial bodies known as the Medicean stars at some point. Appreciating Galileo's work, Cosimo I offered him a prestigious position at his court as the philosopher and mathematician. Galileo happily accepted and managed his duties at the Florentine court. However, his continuous success bred numerous enemies who were actively seeking opportunities to undermine him, and eventually, they found one. Interestingly, Galileo was not against religion. Rather, he held firm beliefs, even raising his daughters Virginia and Livia according to Christian traditions. Despite never marrying, all his children were born to a woman named Marina Gamba. His religious inclinations, however, became a weapon for his adversaries, and they managed to bring him down in the eyes of the church. In 1613, Galileo wrote a letter to a student in Pisa, questioning how the theory of the Earth's motion could be reconciled with the Bible. It's important to recall that there were many critics in Pisa who were dissatisfied with Galileo's experiments against Aristotle's theory. Unfortunately for Galileo, his letter fell into the hands of his enemies, and they prepared false copies, sending them to Rome. In these copies, statements were inserted that opposed the church and religion, which Galileo had not originally made. To defend himself, Galileo had to go to Rome, where he presented the original copy of his letter, proving that the accusations of blasphemy were unfounded. Nevertheless, a few years later, in 1616, the Roman Church placed Copernicus's theory of the Earth's motion on the list of prohibited works, making discussing it a crime punishable by death. The Church warned Galileo to stop following Copernicus's theory and defending it. Galileo refrained from openly discussing Copernicus, but continued secretive research on the Earth's motion. He investigated phenomena like tides and concluded that they were possible due to the Earth's movement in its orbit. A significant event occurred in the Roman Church when a friend of Galileo, a former priest named Pope Urban VII, became the new pope. Supporters of Galileo wrote to the Pope, expressing their concerns, and Pope Urban VII, despite being a friend of Galileo, summoned him to Rome in 1624. After several meetings, Pope Urban VII granted Galileo permission to write a book on the universe, but with a warning to present Copernicus's theory only in a discussive manner, not as an established fact. Following these instructions, Galileo wrote a book titled Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems, which was approved by the Ecclesiastical Censor Board in Florence and published in 1632. In the preface, Galileo made it clear that all the content was for discussion purposes only and not presented as facts. However, readers quickly realized that Galileo had skillfully argued in favor of Copernicus's theory, asserting that the sun is the center of the universe. This stirred controversy among religious individuals in Italy. Despite Pope Urban VI being a friend, he was compelled to take action against Galileo. He promptly instituted a commission to investigate Galileo's book. The commission found Galileo guilty and recommended that he should renounce his beliefs and be condemned for proposing the theory that the Earth moves. Under pressure, Galileo recanted his support for Copernicus's theory and accepted that anything written in favor of it was unintentional. The religious court then sentenced him to lifelong house arrest. Although Galileo's powerful friends couldn't secure his freedom, he continued to enjoy comfort in his house. During this time, Galileo penned a summary of his experiments on motion, serving as his final scientific work. He was virtually blind before his death in July 1642, at the age of 77, succumbing to a fever. His heart, once uncontrollable, finally ceased beating on July 8, 1642. The residence you are currently observing on your screen was Galileo's abode in Florence. Galileo was interred in a temporary tomb within the Santa Croce Church in Florence. In March 1737, his grave was opened, and his remains were transferred to the present tomb inside the church. However, during the relocation, 3 fingers of Galileo's hand were taken. At that time, a tooth was also extracted from the corpse. One of these fingers is housed in a marvelously constructed museum in Florence dedicated to Galileo. Meanwhile, the other 2 fingers and the tooth, preserved in a glass jar, went missing in 1905. The jar remained unnoticed by historians for 100 years, but in 2009, an individual acquired it at an auction with the intention of unraveling its historical significance. When museum experts examined the jar, they discovered Galileo's missing fingers and tooth. The jar remains in the possession of the buyer, its contents shrouded in secrecy. Almost 3 centuries after Galileo's death, in 1989, the Roman Catholic Church, namely the Vatican City, reopened Galileo's case and established an investigative commission. This commission conducted a thorough inquiry for 13 years, concluding in 1992 that the Church's stance towards Galileo was erroneous and that Galileo was indeed right. This marked the Vatican City's acknowledgement for the first time that the Earth revolves around the Sun. Pope John Paul also stated that the clash between science and religion has become a part of the past. Galileo received posthumous acclaim in various ways. An international airport, Galileo Galilei International Airport, was named in his honor in Pisa. In Florence, a research institute bears Galileo's name. Additionally, one of NASA's space missions sent to Jupiter was named after Galileo. The story of Galileo, as well as the Greek philosopher Socrates, who faced similar legal battles, has been explored in our Cosmos series. If you're interested in the biography of Socrates, click here.